Hey, Larken Rose here with a few words about national security, a term that shows up all over the place and hardly anybody thinks clearly about what it really means. I'm going to start with something that sounds unrelated, but it's really not, so bear with me for a couple minutes. Every individual, every business, every group, every organization has its own interests, has the things it's trying to accomplish, the things it's trying to do. And everybody basically looks out for his own interests above all else. And there isn't anything evil or nasty or malicious about that. For example, if you decide to give to the poor, it's because your interests are helping the poor. But you're still doing it because it serves what you want to accomplish. It's sort of a given. It's just a truism that, of course, people do what they think is going to serve what they want to see happen. But a lot of times people aren't honest about this. Like I think it's McDonald's. I can't remember which company. The one that, we do it all for you. No, they don't. They do it all for money. And that's not bad. I'm not saying that to be judgmental. It's just a bald-faced lie when they say we do it all for you. The guy who goes in there early in the morning to make McWhatevers so you can have breakfast, he doesn't care about you. He doesn't know you. He's not, oh, I got to get up and get in there because I really want that guy to have his breakfast. He doesn't care. He's getting paid. Now, part of what he needs to do to get paid to keep that job is make the customers happy, which, being kind of nice and friendly helps with that, and being prompt and giving decent service has a lot to do with that. But ultimately, he's not there to serve you. He's there to serve himself. He's there to make money. And there doesn't have to be a conflict. And in a free market, there isn't a conflict. The way each person serves himself is by serving others. That's the beauty of the free market and voluntary economics, is that if I want your money, I have to do something that you will so much like that you will voluntarily give me your money. That way you get something you like and I get money, which I like. I would like it more if it wasn't fiat garbage, but that's a different topic. So everybody acts in his own interests. And we sort of know this. Like, if you go to a business and say, go to McDonald's, I really wish you would serve nothing but like vegetarian burgers. Well, they're in the business of making money, and they know darn well the vast majority of their customers wouldn't go there anymore if they didn't sell dead cow burgers. So they sell dead cow burgers. And it's not to be mean, it's because that's what makes them money. That's what serves their interests. And everybody does this. Everybody tries to serve his own interest, whatever his own values and preferences and what he's trying to accomplish. Okay, now, what the heck does that have to do with national security? Well, there's this thing called the United States government. And people have this wishy-washy, weird, vague notion that its job is to protect us. No, it isn't. And we are not its customers, because it doesn't ask us nicely if we want to buy its services. If we live in this country, it says, oh, you're going to pay for it, or we will drag you away and put you in a cage. They don't have to please us. They have violent coercion, which is what government always is. You either pay them by way of taxes, or they steal your house or your car, or they drag you away and throw you in prison. So they don't have to please you. You are not the customer. You are not the one they're trying to please. And they don't give a rodent's butt about keeping you safe, because that doesn't serve their interest. Their interest is to empower their own organization, the U.S. government. And if you're getting beat up by some criminal over there, they don't care. It doesn't empower them in the slightest to protect you, because you have to pay for them whether they protect you or not. Now, they have to put on enough of a show that there isn't like a tax revolt or an open revolution, so they sort of pretend to care a little bit here and there, just enough to keep the people from overthrowing them or just massively disobeying them. But they don't care about you. The U.S. government is not in the business of caring about you. It throws out its propaganda like it's there to protect the people. No, it isn't. It's a corporation. It's its own little thing serving itself. Now, when it says national security, it does not mean, when the control freaks in government talk about national security, they don't mean the security of all the people living in this great big place called the United States. They don't give a rodent's butt about you. If you get blown up, they couldn't possibly care less. If they get blown up, then they're sort of upset because that messes with their interests and their profits, their control, their power. That they would care about. If you get blown up, who cares? It's like McDonald's isn't in the business of making sure that somebody 3 counties over isn't getting beat up. You know, they might sort of say, well, I hope he's not, but that's not what McDonald's does. We make money selling this stuff. And the U.S. government is the same way. It's an organized corporation that serves itself, first and foremost. And because it doesn't have to please any customers, it serves itself and nobody else. It does. The only exception is it has to be just nice enough that people don't violently overthrow. Short of that, it doesn't care if you like what they do. So when they talk about national security, and you see something like the what happened to Bradley Manning and then Snowden, where they're just viciously condemning these people and trying to hunt them down and going after them, why? Because they went out in public and said, whoa, look at the nasty stuff your own government is doing to you. Now, it's ridiculous to think that the people who talk about national security in that context mean, oh my gosh, you people out there, it's going to harm you if you find out what we're doing to you. Obviously, it's not your interests they care about when they're viciously doing a witch hunt after anybody who shows you what government is actually doing. Government is trying to defend and empower government. That's all they ever do. Again, they'll put on a little bit of show to try to dupe people, but that's all they care about. And if you start to understand that, then you can start to understand why they're just, you know, the Bradley Manning leaks this video of U.S. military just murdering people. There's a bunch of people hanging around the street. They're not in combat. They're not doing anything. And this gunship just mows them down, kills a whole bunch of them. And that video, thanks to Bradley Manning, has now been seen by millions and millions of people. The U.S. government didn't say, oh my gosh, look at what the troops did. We have to put a stop to this. They said, oh my gosh, the American people found out what U.S. troops do. We have to put a stop to them finding out. So go after Bradley Manning and say he's evil and he's putting our troops in danger. I have an idea. If you don't want the world to hate you, don't fly around murdering people. Works for me. I don't run around murdering people and the whole world doesn't hate me. So that's my happy advice for the U.S. government. But because their own interest is their own power and their own money and their own control and all the fun stuff that goes with that, they hate Bradley Manning for telling the truth way more than they hate their own mercenaries for committing murder. Here's where it gets to the uncomfortable part that most Americans just don't want to think about. Those U.S. troops in Afghanistan and in Iraq before and all over the world that are constantly in these conflicts, they are not there to protect you. And I mean, I don't know how more ridiculous the lie could be before people stop believing it. They're over there fighting for our freedom, because if they didn't, any second now, a bunch of Arabs would come over here and rule the United States. Does anyone really believe that? Seriously? They are not protecting you. They weren't protecting you in Vietnam. They weren't protecting you in Korea. They weren't even protecting you in World War II. But that's a complicated enough thing. We'll leave that for another video. They aren't over there blowing up people on the other side of the world to protect you. Those people aren't any threat to you. Even if they don't like you, even if they think, you know, America is the big Satan. And incidentally, mostly they think the American government is the big Satan, and they're right. Now, a lot of them are too mushy in their head to even make the distinction, so they just sort of think, America. And I can't blame them too much, because most Americans are mushy in their head and think America, and can't distinguish between the people and the place and the ruling class. And so it's a bunch of mushy-headed pack mentality. But a thing that people really don't want to understand, now, if you haven't read the Operation Northwoods documents, go look them up and read them. They're not that long, they're declassified, and you will see government serving its own interests by staging fake terrorist actions to blame on a foreign power in order to get public support for a war. Now, is that in the interest of the people? To create a war completely unnecessarily? To send American soldiers off to die in? Is that in the interest of the soldiers? No. Is it in the interest of the American people? No. Is it in the interest of government? Yes. Because they get power. When they can dupe the people into saying, oh, we have to do something about this. whether we're talking about foreign war or war on drugs or war on crime or war on poverty, whenever they can dupe the peasantry into saying, government, please grab lots of power and fix this, that serves the government interest. So they will instigate wars because it empowers themselves. Here's another really uncomfortable part that people aren't going to want to hear. Guantanamo Bay, people have rightfully, and I just posted a video for a friend of mine about stuff happening at Guantanamo Bay. People are saying, oh, that's horrible how they're treating these people and they torture them. And some people say, what are you doing? Torturing people doesn't even give you reliable intelligence. Because if you torture somebody, you can get them to say anything. They will say anything to stop you from torturing them, whether it's true or false. They don't care. They just want you to stop torturing them. And so a bunch of CIA experts have said this does not gather useful intelligence. It doesn't gather accurate information. And so a lot of people are pointing at Guantanamo Bay and what they do there and the rendition thing and all the happy torture that the Bush and Obama administrations seem to think is just fine, and say, but that doesn't even help. Yes, it does. If you understand what they're actually trying to accomplish. If you still have it in your head that their goal is to protect you, then yeah, it doesn't accomplish anything. It's stupid. You torture people and they tell you completely random stuff that has nothing to do with reality. What good does that do? Plus you're being completely evil by torturing people. If you think that is their goal, it doesn't do any good. If you understand their real goal, you understand why they keep doing it. When they torture somebody to get a confession, and pay close attention because you're not going to want to hear this. When the U.S. government tortures somebody to get a confession, it is not because they want a true confession. They torture people to get false confessions. They want false confessions. Now, if you're imagining them as a protector, you can't process that. I'll tell you why they want false confessions. Because if they can create the image of this big scary enemy out there, then they have an excuse to build a giant war machine and a police state at home and lots of power and surveillance and spying on everybody. And because there's these scary things out there. See, that guy just confessed after we waterboarded him and tortured him and cut him up and did all these nasty things to him. He said there are terrorists. This is something that normal people don't want to understand because it's so dang creepy. When you realize the government serves itself. You aren't the customers. It doesn't need your permission to stomp on you and take your money. It serves itself, and it is completely in the interests of the United States government to create unnecessary war, to create strife and conflict and violence, to create crime. The war on drugs, I did a different video about this. Here, I'll put a link here for you to watch the other video. The war on drugs was a huge success because it was never designed to end illegal drugs. It was never designed to end drug use. It was designed to create an excuse for vast expansion of government power and police state lunacy all over the place, and they're still using it for that. They still use the war on drugs as an excuse for just utter fascism and completely shredding the Bill of Rights and all that fun stuff. If you understand that national security means in the interest of government power, then a whole lot of current events suddenly will make sense to you. That don't if you imagine that national security means protecting you. They mean protecting the nation, as in the ruling class of the nation, as in the authoritarian government. They don't give a rat's butt about you. If you suffer, if you die, if they crash the economy on you, they don't care. And how many ways do they have to demonstrate this before Americans will figure it out? The bailout, oh my gosh, the economy's getting bad. I know, let's rob all the hardworking people and give gajillions of dollars to gigantic banks and corporations. You really think they did that for your benefit? Oh, goody, I'm so glad they stole my money to give it to some humongous bank that already has $12 gajillion in assets. If you understand that their own agenda is entirely focused on empowering themselves, on empowering the organization called the United States government, then you can start to understand why they want torture. They want indefinite detention. They want to create enemies. You know, they're out there saying anybody who talks about the Constitution is a potential terrorist. Anybody who talks about rights is a potential terrorist. People who think we have the right to be armed, they're potential terrorists. Why would they do such a thing? Obviously it's not in your interest to point at you and say, if you want freedom, you're the enemy. Wait a minute, what happened to you protecting us? That is not their agenda. That has never been their agenda. And that is a very important thing to understand what governments actually fear. The idea of some terrorists from the Middle East coming over and killing you, they could not care less about that. They would love it, because then they could point to and say, well, that's why we need more power. We need police state surveillance at home. We need to start a few more wars around the world. Don't give a rodent's butt that you died in the process, or 1,000 or 1,000,000 other people died. They want that. They want the conflict. And this is something that's been around forever. Tyrants have been doing it forever. It's documented literally thousands of years back that they want the conflict and the fear and the strife. Because if everything's going fine, why would anybody empower a government? Well, my life is great. Let's give total control of my life to some narcissistic sociopath. Nobody does that. They have to be scared. There has to be a conflict. There has to be something they're scared of. When they say national security, they mean we're worried that the unquestioned power of the U.S. government is in danger. Don't give a rat's butt about the people of the United States. They're on the other side. Again, if you want to know who government actually fears, you can see it in their own propaganda. They're not scared of Al-Qaeda. They're not scared of extremist Muslims. They're not scared of Afghanistan. You really think any of those countries was going to do anything to us? What they are scared of, and the ones they are actually focused on, are people like you, who are starting to realize that they aren't your friend. They aren't your protectors. They are parasites and thieves and thugs and terrorists and tyrants and murderers. And it is the people figuring that out that pose a threat to the government. And I don't mean a threat of we're going to go blow them up. I mean a threat of when the people wake up to the fact that the slave master has no right to rule, then they say, we're not going to obey you anymore. They may not even resist at all. They may just kind of ignore him. That is what they're scared of. That is the threat to their power, is Americans coming to realize that the United States government is not and has never been an organization that cares about the people or serves the people or helps the people or in any way creates or preserves civilization or morality or peaceful coexistence. It is your enemy. If you want a book on that, there's a book called Our Enemy, the State by Albert J. Nock, which shows why it's a given that government will always be the enemy of the people. And take it from me, they view you as their enemy. They're not trying to protect you. They view you as their livestock. And when they get scared is when they think you, the livestock, are starting to doubt their right to own you. When they say we have to protect national security, they mean we have to keep our livestock obedient. Once you understand that, you see the daily news, it will make a lot more sense.